Okay, on to our next session. So for more than 2 decades, our next speaker has become widely recognized for his ability to see what's coming next in cybersecurity long before the rest of the industry. From the emergence of application attacks to the rise of ransomware and the proliferation of exploitation of shadow assets, his foresight has never been just a matter of luck. It comes from a mental model he developed called the Epoch Theory of Cybersecurity. So in this session, our next speaker explains how understanding attacker incentives, behavioral patterns, and evolutionary cycles enables security leaders to see where the threat landscape is headed and prepare for the future before it arrives. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Jeremiah Grossman, Chief Executive Officer for Root Evidence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here. I'm going to go to the next slide here to start there, but I've been in this industry for 25 years. Where I started was a little bit different than most. When I was 20 years old, I was a Unix administrator a long time ago, making sure big systems ran safely. Everybody has hobbies: painting pictures, riding bikes, reading. My hobby, one of the things that I like to do most, is break software. So 25 years ago, a long time ago, I signed up. Remember Yahoo back in the days? Everybody had a Yahoo Mail account. I decided one night after work that I wanted to see how hard it was to break into Yahoo Mail. So I made a new account, logged out, and proceeded to try to break into it. This was 1999, and it took me 5 minutes to figure out how to break into my account and 120 million other people's accounts. I wrote up an advisory how I did it, because I wasn't trying to do evil or anything like that. I just wanted to see if it was possible, and I sent in what to Yahoo, the information on how I did it, so maybe they can fix it. I went to bed. The next morning, I had an email account from someone at Yahoo saying, "Thank you very much for letting us know about the issue. We appreciate that you want to be anonymous, but please let us know if we can send you a t-shirt." So for me, that was like the greatest day of my life. I got to hack Yahoo, and I got a t-shirt for my efforts. I started engaging in a dialogue with Yahoo. They said, "If you know any more, let us know." And I said, okay, and I sent about a half dozen more bugs in. And I figured out later that I was conversing with one of the 2 founders of Yahoo, and I guess I was annoying them enough for them to give me a job. So that was my first job in cybersecurity, was to hack Yahoo 24/7 for the next 2 years. So since then, I've done a few things. I've raised lots and lots of money for startups, lots of successful startups, and I've developed a mental model that we'll talk about for how to anticipate where the industry is heading, what startups need to be built. And some of the things that I'm most proud of that were the most fun is I got to build the largest private hacker army in existence. I got the get out of jail free card to hack every bank in the US, government's Department of Defense. So it's been a fun ride, and I want to share those experiences with you all here. But the reason we're all here at Black Hat, whether it's at this Black Hat USA, Black Hat Asia, is we all want to know where the future is going. What is the future of technology? And the future of technology is important to be able to anticipate, because wherever technology comes, the criminals come with it. Those that wish to do us harm, steal from us, and disrupt our systems. This will then tell us how our systems need to evolve, because we're up against a sentient adversary, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, I've been fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time a number of times in a row for 25 straight years. I was at the origins of application security before that was ever a term. I was anticipating the rise of ransomware when I joined SentinelOne in 2015, and I was anticipating the emergence of something called attack surface management with bit discovery. These were not lucky guesses. These were developed of a mental model that I want to share with you all today, how to anticipate these markets. So just to cover briefly, application security back in 2000, everybody had websites, everybody was rushing online to do commerce. Now, the idea was that in security at the time, we all put firewalls in place to protect our networks. But we punched holes in the firewall so we could do applications, web applications, and all the attacks moved up the software stack to applications. So as a new form of security emerged. And what we had to do at White Hat was scale application security. Anybody could hack one website at a time, but how do you hack and develop a system to hack all applications at all times? So we, one, anticipated the market, we put in firewalls, where was the new avenues, the applications, and developing a new design for doing application security. So that was one way to think about it. Then 2015 comes along, and this was the era of antivirus. And something strange happened in 2015 because all of our systems were infected with viruses back then, but not even the experts really used antivirus at the time. So what happened in those particular days is you would write a virus, there would be an antivirus signature, and back and forth it went. But the problem in those particular days was the work effort to create a new virus that evaded a signature was flat, and then you create a new signature, and the work effort over time, when there was one virus a day, then 10, then 1,000, and the work effort of the antivirus kept going up in an unscalable way. So we needed a new way. At the very same year, Bitcoin became a thing, so the adversary had a new way to monetize infection of systems. So we anticipated the adversary, which is already on our systems, we're just going to encrypt our systems, start monetizing using cryptocurrency, which they did, and we had to then use machine learning and AI to track the behavior of antiviruses rather than using signatures. That company did the largest IPO in cybersecurity history just a few years later. The last one I'll give you is that over between around 2017, I was talking with a bunch of digital forensics and incident responders, those that investigate incidents, and I was asking them, how are the adversaries breaking in? We were having conversations, and they said something interesting to me. They said that the adversaries were breaking in not due to lack of patching, but due to the business having a lack of knowledge that these systems even existed. If they knew they owned these systems, they would have patched and the breach would have gone away. And so the adversary was getting in on an unknown or unpatched, unknown or unmanaged asset 1/3 to 50% of the time. So we knew at that moment the adversary had figured it out, and we had to do attack surface management. That company, that technology required us to download entire copies of the internet every single day to figure out who on the internet owned what. So that company ran for 3 years and was finally acquired. Now, when you sum all these things up, here's the mental model that I want to share with you today. We put a blog post out on it, and go ahead and read it. But this is the evolution of the adversary. They first start manual, hands on keyboards, breaking in. Then they figured a way to repeat the process, even manually with little tools and scripts. That works for a while. Then they move into scale, internet scale, so they find one vulnerability or two, develop some new tools, and then find ways to scale it across the entirety of the internet. This is what we're dealing with right now in many vectors. And finally, if they're pushed, they'll add complexity and obfuscation to their attacks. They'll polymorph the viruses or whatever the case may be. These stages, the epochs, are very important to align with our security requirements. We have to bear in mind at all times that the adversary is sentient. They are not acts of nature. They chase incentives. So they will only shift, and what we're trying to do is we have to force our controls to meet their capabilities to force a shift. There's 3 different classes of adversary. The hacktivists, those that will hack you and laugh at you. They make their presence known. Then there's the cyber criminals. They'll hack you and they won't laugh at you. They'll lock down your systems, they'll rob your data, and steal as much money as they possibly can. These are much more sophisticated and much more deadly. And then you have the nation-state sponsored adversaries that I'm sure many of you are aware of. Highly targeted, very sophisticated, purpose-driven, usually want command and control over critical infrastructure. These are the adversaries, and we have to think like them as far as what they're going to do next, because they're not going to hack all things at all times. They have missions. So here's 3 rules in cybersecurity that most will forget. Remember these, because everybody in the industry forgets them, and this is how we waste a lot of time and money. If something can be hacked, it doesn't mean it will be hacked. Second, adversaries chase incentives. And the third, when our defenses meet the adversary's capabilities, the adversary has 4 choices. They can stop, good luck. They'll choose softer targets in that same vein. They'll innovate, they'll go to the next epoch, or they'll migrate to a totally new style of attack. If we can get the adversary to do this, we're making ground. And right now, in many areas of cybersecurity, we're not doing that. So what is an epoch? It's just straight definition. It's a distinct period of time marked by notable characteristics, events, or prevailing conditions that set it apart from other periods. So phishing has a certain epoch. Vulnerability management has a certain epoch. ASM has an epoch. Where we're going to get to next is where I think the next evolution is coming, where we can make the most impact, and that's vulnerability management. And there's a reason I'm starting this new company now, because it's where I can make the most impact, where I need a lot of people's help to do it. So this is the state today of vulnerability management. I've spent the last 2 years of my life taking well over 200 meetings with CISOs and vulnerability management teams from the largest companies and governments across the world, day in and day out, asking them questions about what's working and what's not working constantly, and trying to be an authority on vulnerability management. This is the ecosystem. We have 300,000, over 300,000 total CVEs in the ecosystem, discrete vulnerabilities that we were aware of and have been cataloged. The next problem is, and this is when you talk to vulnerability management teams, if any of you are on a vulnerability management team or talk to one, they'll have all of these problems. That scanning, vulnerability scanning is now cost prohibitive. Vulnerability scanning, because the cost of scanning, the compute, and the size of today's environments, it's cost prohibitive. What I mean by that, to scan everything that they own every single day exceeds the expected loss of breach. Imagine that. The cost of security exceeds the amount of money that we're trying not to lose. So that has to be addressed. Because vulnerability scanners are quote unquote really good, the next problem is, if you ask any vulnerability management team, they'll be buried in more vulnerabilities that they have ever hoped that they can ever fix. Just saying patch more, patch faster is a fantasy. It's not going to happen. There's just too many issues out there. When you have that many problems, that many vulnerabilities, everybody races to go, how do we prioritize? Which ones do we fix first? So again, for the last 2 years, I've studied the analytics of every single major scoring model from all the major vendors, from CVSS to EPSS, and I can say with absolute certainty in the data that none of it actually works. It's worse than flipping a coin to try to figure out which vulnerability to fix when. So these issues have to be addressed. And the last one, this is very, very important. So if we don't know, if we can't fix all vulnerabilities, and scanning is expensive, so it's patching, the companies are unable to justify the cost of time and money to fix an issue relative to what it would cost them to leave it exploited, which is why most companies are buried in unpatched vulnerabilities for an extended period of time, because they have no way of telling which ones they should be fixing and how to justify the expense. So I did the next logical thing. I started looking at whatever actuarial data that I could find across the industry. I've read every report in the industry, every PDF, everything from every industry analyst. They're all well and good, but the people I learned the most from were the cyber insurance carriers, which we've heard a lot of cyber insurance today, and the incident responders, the ones that are responding to incidents every single day. What are they seeing? What they are seeing is 50%, a third to 50% of all incidents are the direct result of remote CVE exploitation. The other half are credential stuffing, identity, and phishing attacks. Right there is, if we can solve this vulnerability management problem, we can reduce breaches and financial loss by 50%. That's why I'm on this particular space, because I know of no other space where we can make this kind of impact. Now, the next stat I want to share with you is, this is an industry term, point from VulnCheck. They track which vulnerabilities are seen exploited in the wild. What they've seen out of 300,000 total CVEs, only 1.1% of all the vulnerabilities that we're aware of have ever been exploited ever. The total population of vulnerabilities that we should care about is only 3,000 to 4,000. But it doesn't stop there. I've then gone to the DFIR carriers, the one, as I mentioned, respond to these particular incidents, and the insurance carriers and go, which vulnerabilities are you most concerned about? Which ones do you see? And on any given year, from any given carrier, the numbers will only range from about 20 to 200 total vulnerabilities that matter, which means, to state very clearly, if we wipe out these 200 vulnerabilities that we're not aware of yet, we can reduce breaches and financial loss by 50%. This is how you turn the tide. This is how you win the war against hackers. And I just covered this one here, the 2 to 300 total vulnerabilities. Now, the last one here I'll show you is this 30% number. We have to scan all assets for the vulnerabilities that we care about every single day. That's the target that we're trying to hit. And as I mentioned earlier, right now about a third of breaches have something to do with an unknown asset. Companies do not know what they have internet facing. It's a deceptively hard problem that we have to get our arms around. So again, just to be very painfully clear, what we have to do is focus on finding all assets an organization has, scanning them every single day for the 300 or so vulnerabilities that we care about, and then be able to align how much money it takes to fix those vulnerabilities relative to the financial loss that we're saving. If we do those things, we can cause a categorical shift in vulnerability management. I know this is a little bit of an eye chart. I'll point out here the vulnerabilities that I've collected from the carriers, the 300 or so that matter. I map them against the MITRE system, when these vulnerabilities were first published, let's say. That's what you see down the years. What this says is 35 of the vulnerabilities that are causing breach and financial loss were first disclosed in 2025. 66 were from 2024. If you read all the reports in vulnerability management, everybody's chasing the 0 day, the latest and greatest CVS 10. There was another one yesterday that I was just reading about. It's all well and good. If you want to chase that vulnerability, no problem. But if you notice here, the adversary has a totally different prerogative, a totally different plan. They'll use vulnerabilities going all the way back to 2008 if they have to. So if our security strategies are to fix the CVSS 10s from the last 2 years, we will get hacked and we will have losses. We have to use this kind of actuarial data to inform where we're going. This is the last one I want to share with you here. It might be the last one, we'll see. The adversary, as we see, and they are not innovating. We're going to see little snippets of this. You'll hear the adversary is getting faster with AI. A little bit. These are the edge cases. But if you look at the 99% signal, they're scaling. They're targeting all systems with the old attacks, and they're experimenting with the new stuff. We can read the Anthropic report and make some kind of inferences. This is not where the signal in the noise is. That might be 5 years in the future if we can get these basics right. If we can figure out a way to cause the adversary to innovate, only at that point are we making ground. For those that have been in the space a little while, challenge yourself with this particular question. Think of all the breaches that you've read about, that you've experienced over the last 10 years. Which ones impressed you with the technical sophistication that you have to say, I don't know if we could have stopped that one. We didn't have the tools. We didn't have the know-how to solve those particular issues. With the rare exception, they do not exist. We have all the tools, all the tech, all the concepts to fix these issues, but somewhere in the ecosystem we're missing. Somewhere in the ecosystem, the right people that have the right incentives are not fixing these particular issues. We just have to look at the actuarial data. So our industry is going to start to be led by actuarial data from the cyber insurance carriers and the digital responders. Our industry's job is to find all the possible risks. We then get the data of what are the probable risks for cyber insurance and digital responders so we can narrow our focus. We cannot be expected to protect all things at all times, so we're going to have to focus on what makes the most impact. This is what the business, the CEOs, the boards are clamoring for that we're not yet giving them. What do I spend on to Protect what with how much money? If we give them these answers, we'll change the industry and we'll start making ground. So I just want to go through these three real quick. Where I want to take the industry of vulnerability management, daily scans of all internet-facing assets for any organization. I want to be able to scan 100,000 assets every 60 seconds for any organization. We have to have top-level speed. And as I mentioned, we have to balance the cost of remediation against the cost of financial loss. And the third one there is we have to get vulnerability scanning and the unit cost of security 10x cheaper than what it is. So right now, if you ask them, the biggest companies out there, how much of your systems are you scanning, how often? It won't be everything every day because it's cost prohibitive. We have to get the cost down of our security products. We have to keep that margin going forward. So again, I just want to leave you with this. Let's force the adversary to shift to a new approach. And one of the things that we get to do is we get to protect this thing that we call the internet, which I'll claim is the single greatest invention that we'll see in our lifetime. And for those of us that are here, we have to operate with the highest level of integrity, professionalism, and honesty because we're the ones that are going to protect this very important thing that protects all of us, all of our loved ones, all of our phones, all of our communications, all of our darkest secrets. And we get to be here to do that at this moment, at this conference. Thank you.